Cretan village architecture is a product of the environment, climate, and the materials that are at hand. Villages are often compact, sharing walls and threaded by a maze of alleyways. Pitched, red-tiled roofs are common in rainy mountain regions, flat ones in drier areas. Two distinctive features are the arch, often lofty and graceful, and the courtyard, full of flowering plants, shaded by a vine or mulberry tree, and housing the beehive-shaped bread oven. Doorways, especially those of Venetian houses, can be quite grand, with carved stone and woodwork. Houses tended to be of Spartan simplicity, just what was needed for daily life. Everything more or less in one room, with little or no decoration, beyond a few photographs and an icon. In the mountains especially, life centered around hearth and stove. Quite grand manor houses, with their walled estates, survive from the Venetian and Turkish periods, some of which, lovingly restored, house collections of implements, furniture and decorative art. At the Cretan house, Mrs. Aspasia Bikaki displays objects from Cretan life in their settings, believing passionately in the importance of handing down tradition to the younger generation and helping them to understand how people lived in the past. In order to bring the past even closer to people, Mrs. Bikaki is engaged in recreating scenes from her childhood in the village as she remembers it in her grandmother's time, embroidered with a wealth of detail, a labour of love. From this emerges a picture of life very different from that of today, one that was almost self-sufficient, in harmony with the seasons, making use of whatever was at hand, from garden cultivation to dairy products, clothing, footwear, all the necessities of life. Some of the skills that the women of the house were expected to cultivate were embroidery and lace making, something seen quite rarely now, but common just a few decades ago, the skills passed on from mother to daughter down the generations. In addition, many houses had looms for weaving woolen cloth for clothes and fabrics. Calliope Zilibini of Gavalochori learnt lace-making, using a special cushion called a copanelli from the nuns at Correchies in 1921, when she was 10, a craft she still continues today, at the age of 97. At the Arts Village close to Hanya, the visitor can see a whole range of arts and crafts, including museum replicas, stained glass and clay sculptures. Parties of school children are encouraged to experiment with materials and colour. Jewellery making thrives in Hania, both innovative and traditional in design. A particularly fine Cretan potter, Sklavenitis, bases his designs and techniques on Byzantine originals.
Όλες οι τεχνικές αυτές, τα ιαλώματα, το χάραγμα, η κατασκευή των ιαλωμάτων, όλα ξεκινήσαν από το Βυζάντιο. Πρέπει λοιπόν να μην χαθεί και αυτή η τεχνική, να ακολουθούμε βέβαια τη σύγχρονη τεχνολογία και τα ευρωπαϊκά δείγματα σύγχρονης τέχνης, αλλά μην εγκαταλείψουμε και τις παραδοσιακές τέχνες.
Rediscovering colouring, glazes and techniques from Minoan times.
Μάλιστα εδώ στην Κρήτη που μπορούμε να πούμε ότι είναι η μάνα της κεραμικής. Γιατί από τη Θεσσαλία, πιο παλιά από το Αιγαίο. Έχουμε αξιόλογους κεραμίστες που παίρνουν μέρος σε διεθνείς εκθέσεις με βραβεία, με διακρίσεις, άτομα καλλιτέχνες με φαντασία, με ταλέντο, που έτσι έχουμε ελπίδες ότι δεν θα χαθεί ποτέ η κεραμική στην Κρήτη και θα προχωρήσει πάντοτε πάνω σε σύγχρονη τεχνολογία και εισάξια της ευρωπαϊκής κεραμικής.
Up until quite recently, the rural Cretan diet was wholesome and simple, based on what could be grown locally or found growing wild. Meat and fish, away from the coasts, were occasional treats. The consumption of fruit and vegetables was exceptionally high. The amount of olive oil consumed per person far outstripped that of anywhere else in the world. As a consequence of this, and of their whole way of life, Cretans suffered an almost negligible level of heart disease, lower by far than any other country studied, and had exceptional longevity. Despite the inroads made by processed convenience foods and the overconsumption of meat, saturated fat and sugar, there has been a revival of interest in the Cretan diet, and a lot of research done on it, bringing an increased awareness of just what it is that makes it so healthy. In particular, extra virgin olive oil has been shown to bring an abundance of benefits, including reducing cholesterol and lowering blood pressure, protecting against cardiovascular disease and cancer.